witnessed the presentations. So already two speakers have shared their presentations with us. So you are the third speaker for this Day 1 event, Global Virtual Summit 2024. So before you start your presentation, I would like to introduce you to the audience, who you are and what are the accomplishments in your life. So welcome on stage, Joanne Farell. So Joanne Farell, a lawyer, now a kinesiologist, life coach, and breathwork facilitator. Joanne's career shift began with a yoga mat in India. Mhm. So she specializes in addressing adrenal burnout and neural pathway rewiring, combining shamanic teachings with breathwork for lasting wellness. Her guided sessions empower individuals to overcome stress and connect with nature. So I think it was really a great introduction for Joan Farrell. So I know, so everyone will be engaged for this. I know, so everyone will be very much interested on how to overcome the stress and all. So all the best, Joan.
Thank you so much. I will preface this that I am having a challenge with technology in getting my share screen happening, but we will see what happens with that. If somebody can assist in the background in getting that presentation up for me, that would be great, because my sharing screen isn't working at the moment for some
Yeah, it's
reason.
working. And we can see you have already shared your screen with us. So just click
Okay,
on the,
so,
yeah, just
so
maximize.
can you see Body Brain Tracking to Thrive? Is that what you can see?
Oh, please select the PDF you want to show to the audience.
I'm sorry?
So please select the PDF, PowerPoint presentation you want to show to the audience.
Yeah, I've done that, but it's not coming through for some reason. It's not working from my end. So what I'm saying is, I've shared it with you via email. I'm sorry for the audience that this is happening, but I can't, it's not working through my computer for some reason.
Oh,
So I can speak to it, but you can't see the slides for it. So I'm sharing my
okay, just
screen.
give me 1 second. So we will share from our side, okay?
Yeah, if you can share from your side, that will be great. I
Okay.
just sent it through an email a moment ago. So if you can let me know when that's up, I might just start by sharing, a little bit about my background. So as you heard, I used to be a corporate lawyer. I went through my personal experience of burnout, stressful living, and honestly, during that career, there were times when I wasn't really clear whether I wanted to do it anymore. And I had my elevator moment, which I call my elevator ditch moment, which was, this job is really killing my soul and I need to do something about it. And part of my burnout was not just stress, but it was, I didn't have passion for what I was doing. And going through that change in career and leaving the city, and quite a big life change, it taught me the importance of really coming back into self-regulate, review where you're at in life, review your decisions regularly, and not get caught up in this Ferris wheel of life and just continuing to doing what you should do, what others expect of you, and being at the mercy of life's pressures, which is so easy to be out of control in. So I did a lot of journeying through making that change in my career. And one of the things was learning that I wasn't listening to my feelings. I was totally shut down. I was all in my mind. And I was choosing to ignore this kind of body knowing and body wisdom that, people call it gut feeling. I was choosing to not listen to that and just convincing myself I was doing the right thing. I had to get ahead in life, get my house, do all the things. And yeah, I just wasn't really listening to that inner calling, which was really my guiding factor that was being ignored. So what I want to share with you in this presentation today, and I think it's not up yet, but if you can let me know when it is, a question for you first is, like, how often during a week do you find you are triggered? Whether it's in a relationship conflict or a work, like if you're really honest with yourself, how many times do you reckon a week that you are triggered? And that response and trigger can be anger, frustration, um, despair, giving up, um, feeling overwhelmed, and most commonly a stress reaction. And the thing about when you go into stress, and look, everybody's talking about stress now, everybody's aware of the impact of it. It shuts down your thinking brain. It puts you in this state where you can't think and actually make really bad decisions. So what I want to share with you is a pathway and some tips and modalities that can actually help you get out of those trigger traps. Some of those things are things that you want to get help with through people who are specialists in that area, but also there are really simple tools that you can learn for yourself to help you once you've become aware of what those triggers are, how to manage them and how to stay out of that stress reaction. So what I want to share is in the perspective of women as leaders.
Sorry to interrupt, Joanne. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have already shared from our side the PowerPoint
Um,
presentation.
oh, yeah, that's the one from the last time. There's one I sent today, which is the one I'm doing now. That's a different one.
No, that's a different one.
Yeah, that's the one from March.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we have shared
Yeah,
the
I sent an
latest.
email. I sent an email to about 5 minutes ago. It's in
Oh,
there.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
5 minutes
Yeah,
ago
you
to be
can
there.
continue. I'll.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, what I want to talk about is the 5 key mistakes that women, especially in leadership, make, so that you can be aware of those. The 5 major obstacles that to be aware of that impact, how you're empowering yourself. What the impact of the gender gap is, so we know where we are in reality today before we're looking further. How behavior is driven. Now, that's a real key to be aware of, because what I'm sharing today mostly about is inner leadership, because how you lead within is what you're going to have reflected without. So inner leadership is a big part of integrating your life experience, review, and change. I'm also going to share a bit about how to release body memory stress, and what are what I think are the 5 keys of inner leadership, the things that will keep you on track of whether you are being integrated and responsible and have self-responsibility so you can grow. And then just outline a few tips on how to gain clarity and how to self-care. So you probably know, if you've looked into any of the work of Norman Dodge or Bruce Lipton, the concept of how our behaviors are built. So we start with a thought, which creates a feeling response, and that feeling response creates a chemical reaction in the body. And if it's a nice, pleasurable reaction, you might get a neurotransmitter like GABA, which is a relaxing, or oxytocin when you're connecting with others. And that's a really nice feel-good feeling that naturally, serotonin, dopamine, these are all naturally feel-good feeling neurotransmitters. The opposite is the ones that we're all know more familiar is adrenaline, noradrenaline, acetylcholine. These are the active, and these are the most active stress response neurotransmitters. So the reaction from a trigger trap goes from thought to feeling to chemical reaction and a body sensation of stress. And the behavior that responds to that is either resistance, procrastination, avoidance, or commonly referred to as the fight, flight, freeze response. And the thing is, how you become who you are is that thought, reaction, response, and that becomes a habit. That becomes what you do every time you have that interaction with someone. That becomes a habit that's totally wired and unconscious often. And over time, that becomes a behavior and becomes one of your personality characteristics. So what's interesting to note about that is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So how you deal with a confrontation with your partner may be also how you deal with a confrontation with a colleague at work or a customer, for example. And if you're in a negative habit or behavior around that, it's not going to help your business and it's not going to help your home life. So it's really critical to be able to unpack how you're responding. And the key to that obviously is self-awareness. But often, because the triggers jump into a stress response so fast and so unconsciously, you don't have even the wherewithal to respond. So you're in reaction rather than responding. And this is the commonly known, as I said, the fight-flight situation. So when you're looking at, women in leadership, we really can't afford to be stressful in our responses to situations, because as you're in stress, the cortex, think part of the brain shuts down and you're just in, you can't make good decisions from that place. And there are already generations of obstacles that we have to overcome, partly being cultural expectations, partly being gender bias and stereotypes. A third one is imposter syndrome, which is really our self-imposed views of ourselves, other perceived limitations that we might have, that we're not good enough at something, or we have to know everything before we can try it. And then there's also the phenomenon for women, when there is an achievement, that they get a bit of backlash, that they were too tough or too hard or too masculine in the way they did it. And this is one of the obstacles for us to overcome. So when you think about that context, there are 5 key behaviors that I can see from women that I've worked with, like thousands of women for decades now, in terms of dealing with, in particular, business, but also relationships. And one is giving your power away. The second is pushing too hard. That's often being like too masculine, too forceful. Another is lacking self-worth. The fourth one is putting yourself last, so putting job and everything else before you. And then the last one, the fifth one, is being passive or even giving up. So like not bothering to compete with the masculine because you just assume they're going to be accepted because that's the stereotype for that job, for example. So, and the impact of the gender gap essentially is that women only make up a third of the executive level leadership around the world, and have somewhere between 20 to 50% less pay, depending which country you're in. And one of the alarming statistics is women are 2.5 times more likely to have burnout than men are. And so the thing is, how do you change that? So the challenge is 95% of your behavior is driven by unconscious thoughts. So this is the habit that I'm talking about. As you build up your response and you're not changing, you're running on this behavior, this habit. And so we've got to look at our human aspects. So, the yogis talked about this in the koshas, the different aspects of our being is physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And so in our Western society, there tends to be an overfocus on the mental. And the emotional is a big part of that because that's in the reaction. But the part that's missing often is the physical body as a gauge. And by reference to that, I'm talking about the gut feeling, intuition. And that's a big part of how we can grow and be powerful leaders, especially for women, because we're naturally connected to our womb. And then the fourth part of our being, which is the spirit part, is, how much are we connecting within to our, whatever our spiritual belief system is, to that to guide us? How often are we stopping to meditate for 5 minutes, even in the morning, to ask, is this the right pathway for me? How can I be powerful in my leadership when I'm not clear of which way to go? And it's in that stillness and that calling to spirit for guidance that if you align with that, you'll find everything you do is connected and in life's flow, so you get more synchronicity. And also, if we're aligned with that spiritual vision, we're going to have a lot more passion and drive for it. So naturally, we gain energy when we're aligned in that. So for me, in my legal job, after some time, I didn't have the passion anymore. So I felt it was depleting me. And it took me a long while to realize that, because I was doing 2 hours of yoga every morning and often swimming or walking in the afternoon. I did a lot of physical exercise and physical self-care, but I actually wasn't listening to my spirit to make the change. So it's really important to have all these aspects and be aware of it. And even though I was cultivating body power, I wasn't listening to my gut, my intuition at all, because I didn't have the tools to know how to do that, or the awareness. So this is a big part of what I'm passionate about teaching women leaders now, is how do you tap intuition, and how do you access spiritual wisdom and passion and drive to fuel the rest of what will happen in how you work. So the key there is activating your body knowledge through the intuition, having your emotional intelligence internally, but also reading the field of who you're working with, having mental clarity, so knowing, but not being too fixated, because if you're overly fixated, then you don't have receptivity to new ideas. And then spiritual sensitivity, as I said, to be guided by that. So the process that for me is the key driver in how to track what's in your thought field is what I call body brain tracking. And this is a kinesiology process. And what you can do with that is use biofeedback to test a muscle, to access your unconscious, to find out, okay, so if I'm stressed in performing in a job for some reason, and I don't understand why, is this because I have a fear around men controlling me, or I feel I have to respond in a certain way because they have the power? And so you can actually track in your past to an example of some situation in your past when you were traumatized. And I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues, that when she was training in kinesiology, we always used to do the training where one person would be at the front of the room on a table and they would muscle test. And we were working specifically on fight, flight, and amygdala pathways in that session. And she lay down, and the teacher was taking off his watch, and that movement reminded her memory. It was tracking something similar, and it put her into a shock state. And they tested and realized it was reminding of her when she was 9, when her father took her belt off to hit her. And that was her reaction. And she was reliving that as if it was happening there and then. And so what she realized is she had this thing about authority around men and couldn't hold her autonomy and power around men because of that trigger response. So, you know, this is one of the very few tools I've found and I've researched that can clear, not only once you have the awareness, but you can go into the physiology of the brain response and the body response and release that by holding pressure points that are specifically referencing the amygdala and the amygdala pathway. And then you can look at core beliefs, changing them from the negative to the positive, nurturing new behaviors. So, you know, this is the thing that everybody's talking about now. How do you release the stress? How do you change these patterns? You can talk about it, but because it's in your subconscious and the memory is stored in your body, you actually need to release the stress response in your body. And this time tracking way is specifically taking you back to that without re-traumatizing. So it's a really powerful tool. And, you know, ultimately, because of that, your body is what I call the truth detector, and your brain is your regulator, because it's regulated through the nervous system, and that's which activates either the sympathetic nervous system response or the parasympathetic, which is the rest response. So a lot of what I'm working with is really going into those past memories, releasing the body stress response. It doesn't erase the memory, but what it does erase is the body stress response. So you know what your trigger is, but you don't react in the same way again. I've worked with that with victims of sexual abuse, and in 2 or 3 sessions, they don't have the same response to that memory or a trigger that reminds them of that memory. Once you've tracked it and removed the body response to it, it doesn't get activated in the same way. So, you know, in this cycle of doing and dreaming your life, the key is to look at the emotional intelligence and your body knowing and your intuition with your open receptivity in your mind and your spiritual connection to make the life that you want to make, to follow, to make the changes that you want to make. So really the keys to these are like, I put it down to 5 key pointers for inner leadership, what I call inner leadership. And it's an acronym from trust. And the first one is to trust your own judgment. to have a reality assessment of your capabilities, to up-level your self-worth, to stand for your view, and to have tenacity. So they're the 5 key parts of inner leadership. And I'm going to share with you a couple of my experiences, which are actually from a hobby of mine, which is hiking, because I've learned some of the most incredible lessons from hiking from when I was in my 30s. And one of them, for example, in terms of trusting my own judgment, and this was feeding into the collective obstacles that we have of perceptions of men. I was doing the reverse gender stereotyping. So I'm hiking in New Zealand in this 5-day hike up the wild wilderness. I'm on my own, actually, and then I meet up with this Spanish guy. We decide to do the 5 days together. I was there for about 3 weeks. And we were getting a pickup at the end of the 5th day. You get like dropped in this remote area. You carry your own food. You're camping, the whole thing. We're hiking through this on the last day through this deep deciduous forest. And I was leading at this point. We took turns in leading, and I'm hiking through the forest. And I noticed after a while, like I haven't heard anything behind me. I haven't seen him. I'm like, where is he? And I just, took 15 minutes before I'd passed a crossroad in the path. And I took what I thought was the obvious way forward. And I realized he must have gone the other way. So I'm running back to find him with my big heavy backpack. And eventually I find him. And I was like, what are you doing? This is the wrong way. It's this way. And he goes, no, it's this way. And I'm like, no, I'm sure it's that way, up that way. And he was like, no, it's this way. And he was so certain and confident in his conviction of the way to go. And I just deferred to him because he was army trained. He's a male. He's probably done more hiking than me. He probably knows better than me. I mean, I had hiking experience. I'd already been hiking in the Himalaya for 3 months, but I didn't value the experience that I had, and I deferred to his better opinion, which was actually wrong because we ended up bush bashing and crawling on our knees. We missed the ferry pickup point. It was like a total disaster at the end, but we finally made it home safe. But the point was that I just didn't trust my own judgment. I knew in my gut feeling that I was going the right way, but I deferred to his better experience. So it was a good lesson for me to always, trust in your judgment and value your experience. Another one, which was another hiking story, I was hiking in the Himalaya for 3 months, again, big backpack. And I didn't really make a real proper assessment of my physical capacity. So I was carrying like nearly half my body weight. And it was the end of the day. We're walking down this really narrow trail. And I was with, again, another army trained guy who was 6'4" and really strong. And we decided to go down this trail to find a hot springs for the night. And I suddenly, and this was like down a cliff edge, like it was like 1,000 meters going down. And because I was tired and the backpack was getting heavy, and suddenly I twisted my ankle and I was catapulted off the edge of the cliff. And I was facing the sky going, oh, like it was all instantaneous. Like I saw my life flashing in front of me. And I landed on the one and only tree that was growing out of this cliff in the middle of the Himalaya. Like, talk about grace, right? And he picked me up and we got back to safety, obviously. But, I didn't properly assess my realistic capacity. I was pushing too hard, being too masculine, thinking I can do like the big power man. And, it was just a good lesson of the importance to be humble enough to look at what your real capacity is and to seek support and help when that's appropriate. But also, value what you can do, celebrate your achievements, take responsibility for your mistakes. So these are some of the things that are important in not downplaying your own capacity and not deferring to the power of others over you. And to really like up level your self-worth and doing that is really about valuing your life experience as well as your qualifications, celebrating your achievements, reviewing always, and to look at where you can improve. So, and the importance of courage to stand what you have shared or your opinion on something. It's very easy to get railroaded by others who seem to know better. and the importance of communication around that. And that is one thing that's really key to how I work with training women in their workplace, especially. Conflict resolution is really important. Communication is key, but to not feed into the stereotypes that we're collectively breaking down now. And then, of course, tenacity is always like persevering. And my key into tenacity and how to keep going is actually just coming into presence, because that's where your power is. And that's because our thoughts are driven mostly by past experiences. The only other option is being fully present in the moment. And so a lot of the training that I do is how can you come into full presence in the moment when you're making a decision. You know, the statistics are that 70% of people fail to achieve their goals. And part of that is because they're stuck in their thoughts and emotions and they're living in their past experiences. So the more you can come into full presence in the moment and not go into worry or stress, and the more you're connected with your spiritual guidance, you know, it's going to be very clear without effort what it is for you to do. And my key, let's see, techniques to help with that are kinesiology, definitely number one, breath work as well, mentoring, mindfulness, mindset mastery, and then very much writing as a self-regulation improvement, accountability process. And I would say to people, reach out for support, because it's really hard to do this by yourself. I've tried it and it took me a longer time to really get where I wanted to go. So leading yourself is really about taking the time out and stopping and reviewing and going within and seeking help, but also going out in nature to really come into balance. And there's lots of different self-care mind body techniques that you can use for balance. I'm really sorry that you can't see my talk, and maybe they'll be able to put that, my slides, maybe they'll be able to put that in later. But I guess I would close in saying, listen to your body's wisdom and lead with your body, mind, and soul, because that's where you're going to get the full, complete best of who you are in balance. And you'll have the most power and creativity and imagination. You'll get clarity much easier. You're going to have connection to your wisdom that will come naturally. And you're going to be much more creative and have the conviction to follow your dreams and do what it is you want to do. So that's part of my mission, and you can connect through my website in the links on my profile information to on my website. I'm sharing a free de-stress kit. So they're very simple techniques and tools to self-empower you to do that. And I've got other information about programs, and hopefully we'll be able to share the slides with you at some point. I'm so sorry that they couldn't make it to the event, but thank you so much. If there's any questions or comments, let me know. And I will say goodbye for now. Thank you so much for listening. If there's any questions or comments, and reach out if you want. If you want a copy of the slides, if it doesn't come through this, I'm happy to share the copy of the slides as well. Thank you for listening.
Joanne,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
So thank you so much for the great presentation. You delivered your message with such clarity and passion. So here is the question from our audience.
Yeah.
Question is, so you identified five key mistakes women in leadership often make. So can you elaborate on the impact of giving your power away and how women can reclaim their authority in the workplace?
Yeah, so part of that was, I was talking about that experience when I was hiking in the mountain and made this assumption that this hiker male who was army trained had more experience than me. So giving your power away to me is like, and it happened in the legal world too. There was often assumption that the male uh, person's opinion, another male solicitor's or a barrister's opinion was more experienced than mine or more worth listening to mine. And giving our power away is not um, like giving our opinion, not, I won't say forcefully is not the good way, but just like maybe not pressing the point, maybe not, I think I get an example, not going for competing with another man because we assume they will get the job, deferring to a masculine's likely success over ours, just because statistics might say that, I think a lot of men, for example, will be more willing to take risks than women are, because women are more likely to be wanting to make sure they know everything, or more perfectionist, or more, really want to get it right. Like that's a more, and this is generalizations I'm talking about, of course, but I think there are studies that show men, if they know 3 things out of a job description of 10, they'll still go for the job, whereas women wouldn't. They'd want to need at least 6 or 7 before they'd be confident, as an example. So giving your power away is anything where you're not valuing your contribution, and not, especially when, there could be somebody speaking louder, but maybe they might be wrong, or you don't stand up for yourself and so actually either this is wrong or what about this perspective. So how you claim it back is really having confidence in your own power. And this is why it's important to do this review and acknowledge your achievements and look at your skills and your capabilities, look at your life experience, because life experience is sometimes even more valuable than your qualifications. And so the more you review and acknowledge what your pluses and what you have to contribute, the less likely you're going to give your power away because you feel you're not valued. And it's a practice thing. It's like you have to actually speak up and practice to claim that. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yes, hope everyone got the answer for the question. So thank you so much for joining this Global Virtual Summit 2024. It
Thank you.
was really enlightening and you engaged the audience with your great presentation today. So I want you to share your thoughts and show some love to the other speaker sessions as well. So please do join other sessions. So thank you,
Yes, I will.
Joanne. Have a nice day. Please
Okay,
join
thank
our
you.
next speaker session message.
Okay, thank you.